For 17 years, Africa's War Command was not even in Africa. It lived quietly in Germany, far from the soil it claimed to protect. But now, whispers have turned into front-page headlines. Washington is preparing to move AFRICOM onto African land, and Morocco is the chosen stage. At first glance, it looks like a partnership. But ask yourself, is it truly about Africa's safety, or about locking the continent inside a new fortress? Why Morocco? Why now? And why does the first Air Force General, a man who once orchestrated drone strikes and shadow raids, suddenly take command at this very moment? These are not coincidences. They are signals. Morocco calls it security. But in Bamako, in Niamey, in Ouagadougou, many call it betrayal. Is this the dawn of a new alliance, or the opening act of a new occupation? What is unfolding is not just about bases or soldiers. It is about sovereignty itself. And in that single word lies the drama that will decide whether Africa rises free, or is chained once again by foreign hands. If you believe this is more than just news, but history in the making, like this video now and stay with us. On August 1, 2025, the U.S. Senate confirmed Air Force Lieutenant General David Anderson as the new commander of AFRICOM. For the first time, an airman, not a soldier, takes control of America's African command. Why him? Because Anderson is not just any officer. He once directed shadow raids, drone strikes, and black-budget missions across the continent. His promotion signals a turning point. The era of quiet occupation has gone high-tech. Drones instead of boots. Satellites instead of speeches. Special forces in the shadows, not in the headlines. This is the new face of U.S. power in Africa. And with Morocco as the stage, the question sharpens: is this protection or preparation for something far more dangerous? Morocco did not stumble into this role by accident. It staged it, rehearsed it, and now it is playing the part on the world's most dangerous stage. For years, Rabat has been auditioning for Washington, presenting itself not as part of Africa, but as America's most loyal gatekeeper to Africa. The question that echoes through the streets of Bamako, Niamey, and Ouagadougou is haunting: did Morocco secure its future, or sell out the continent? Imagine the scene. Every year, under the blazing desert sun, tens of thousands of boots strike Moroccan soil. It is called African Lion, one of the largest military war games on the continent. Over 10,000 troops from 50 countries, armored convoys, roaring jets. But the message is not about defending Africa. It is theater, a spectacle meant to prove one thing: Morocco is ready, reliable, and loyal. To Washington, not to Africa. This is how Morocco rose to the top of America's list. Not through partnership, but through performance. And then came the real masterstroke, December 2020. In a dimly lit diplomatic backroom, Donald Trump recognized Morocco's claim over Western Sahara, a land scarred by decades of struggle, in exchange for Morocco normalizing ties with Israel and joining the Abraham Accords. To Rabat, it was a geopolitical jackpot. To many Africans, it was betrayal written in capital letters. That deal did not bind Morocco to Africa. It tethered Morocco to Washington and Tel Aviv. It turned Rabat into a pawn between empires, a bridge connecting America, Israel, and the Arab world, but leaving Africa on the other side of the river. And now, with U.S. forces expelled from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, Morocco presents itself as the new gateway to the Sahel. The likely prize? Kenitra Air Base, modern, Atlantic-facing, politically stable for now. A perfect runway for America's ambitions. Yet every runway has two ends, one for takeoff, one for crash landing. Because across the continent, people see through the illusion. They remember that in 2007, every African nation refused to host AFRICOM. They recall how Niger, in a storm of protests, shut down a $110 million U.S. drone base. They watched as revolutionary governments in Mali and Burkina Faso expelled foreign troops in the name of sovereignty. And they whisper a question Morocco cannot silence: why is Rabat opening its arms when the rest of Africa is closing its doors? This is not just geopolitics. It is theater with real blood at stake. Morocco calls it security. But Algeria, Morocco's old rival, sees it as provocation. If AFRICOM lands in Kenitra, Algeria may tilt deeper into Russia's orbit, not out of love for Moscow, but out of principle, to resist American fortresses on African soil. In a world already split between competing empires, Morocco's decision risks fracturing Africa itself into rival blocs. Picture it as a chessboard. America moves a knight into Morocco. Instantly, Russia positions a rook in Algeria, while China lays down pawns of ports, railways, and telecom lines across the continent. The players do not bleed. The board itself does. And the board is Africa. The irony is sharp. While Washington preaches partnership, what it offers looks like occupation. While Rabat celebrates new status, its neighbors mutter of betrayal. And the people, especially Africa's restless youth, see the game for what it is. They are tired of empty speeches, tired of foreign flags planted in their soil. Tired of leaders choosing empire over sovereignty. In the United States, people remember Vietnam as a war fought not only on the battlefield but also in living rooms, as television screens filled with images of chaos. Africa today is living through its own broadcast, but this time, it is not CNN cameras, it is the smartphones of millions of young Africans. Every drone strike, every foreign base, every military parade in Morocco is recorded, uploaded, and judged in the court of global opinion. And the verdict is damning. This looks less like partnership and more like occupation by livestream. Here lies the paradox. Morocco believes it is securing its crown jewel, proof that it has become Washington's most trusted ally in Africa. But every jewel comes with a shadow. And the shadow here is sovereignty. Can Morocco claim to defend Africa if its reward came from deals cut in Washington and Tel Aviv? Can it speak of partnership when its neighbors see chains? The street in Niamey answers with banners, down with American imperialism. The voices in Ouagadougou answer with chants, Africa for Africans. And in Bamako, young men and women march with Pan-African flags. Not Moroccan ones. If you believe that Africa's story cannot be written in Washington or Rabat alone, if you believe sovereignty is more than a slogan, then let your voice be part of this moment. Share your thoughts below. Because history is not only written by generals and presidents. It is also written by those who dare to speak when silence is demanded. The story America tells is always the same: terrorism, instability, the need for partnership. But peel back the curtain and the truth is harsher. AFRICOM's mission was never about making Africa safe. It was about making Africa safe for America's interests. Oil pipelines, cobalt mines, trade routes, compliance from governments, these are the arteries Washington intends to protect. The language of counterterrorism is the smoke. But the fire is economic and geopolitical control. Look at the record. In 2023 alone, AFRICOM admitted to conducting 546 military activities across the continent. That is more than one mission every single day. And those are just the operations they are willing to admit. Behind the numbers lies a machinery of constant intervention, a shadow war disguised as partnership. These are not defensive measures. They are moves on a chessboard, ensuring no rival power gains ground, ensuring no African government steps too far out of line. Much of this shadow war hides inside a loophole called 127E. Under this obscure authority, the United States quietly raises and funds foreign units, African troops who fight not for their nations, but for American objectives. It is a way to wage war without calling it war. No congressional debate, no African consent, no accountability. From 2017 to 2020, more than $300 million flowed into these secret missions, each stamped with code names that sound like Hollywood thrillers: Junction Serpent, Kodiak Hunter. But the casualties are not on a screen. They are on African soil. The drone base in Niger was supposed to be the crown jewel of this quiet empire, a $110 million monument to surveillance and strike power. But in 2023, when Niger's revolutionary government demanded sovereignty, the base was shuttered, the troops expelled, and the message was unmistakable: Africa will not be a playground for foreign drones. Yet Washington did not retreat. It shifted its eyes to Morocco. It chose to plant its flag again, this time in a country willing to host what others had already rejected. And so the narrative continues: counterterrorism, partnership, training. But Africans know better. They see the pattern. Where America builds bases, civilian lives are shattered. In Somalia, AFRICOM was forced under international pressure to admit that its airstrikes killed non-combatants, mothers, children, farmers. What Washington calls collateral damage, Africans call family. Every strike breeds not safety but resentment, not peace but resistance. Here is the paradox. America says it is protecting Africa, but its actions weaken the very idea of African sovereignty. By embedding troops, funding proxy forces, and directing shadow operations, AFRICOM positions itself not as a partner but as a master. The facade of cooperation hides the reality of command. And the more Washington insists on control, the more African voices rise against it. Listen to the streets. In Niamey, thousands chant against American imperialism. In Ouagadougou, banners demand the end of foreign bases. In Bamako, revolutionaries speak openly of Pan-African unity and the rejection of Western domination. These are not isolated outbursts. They are a generational tide, a refusal to repeat the mistakes of the past. For decades, Africa endured colonial fortresses dressed as protectorates. Today, AFRICOM appears as nothing more than colonialism reborn in camouflage and satellites. The United States justifies its presence by pointing to rivals. China, they say, builds ports and roads only to extract resources. Russia, they warn, offers weapons but sows instability. Yet on the ground, the contrast is glaring. While Beijing cuts ribbons on railways in Kenya, Washington plants fences around airstrips in Morocco. While Moscow signs security deals without sermons, Washington dispatches generals who speak of democracy but operate in secrecy. Africans are not blind to this difference. They know when infrastructure is built for them and when bases are built against them. For Americans, the memory of Iraq and Afghanistan still lingers, wars fought for years under shifting justifications, wars that drained treasure and trust. Now imagine that same strategy exported to Africa. Not in deserts of Baghdad but in Sahel villages, not in Kabul's alleys but in Niamey's streets. The pattern is painfully familiar. Training missions become long occupations. Advisors become commanders. Partnership becomes dependence. And once again, the line between protection and domination is erased. This is why the decision to move AFRICOM to Morocco carries such heavy symbolism. It is not simply a relocation of headquarters. It is a declaration: America is not leaving Africa, it is entrenching itself. And yet every fortress built breeds resistance. History shows that no empire holds Africa without facing revolt. From Algeria's War of Independence to South Africa's struggle against apartheid, the continent has taught the world that domination, no matter how sophisticated, is always temporary. Morocco may believe it has secured prestige. Washington may believe it has secured strategy. But beneath both lies a growing storm. A continent that remembers colonial chains does not mistake new walls for safety. It recognizes the pattern. It feels the weight of foreign boots, even when those boots are hidden behind drones and satellites. And so the tension grows. Will Africa's future be dictated from a command center in Kenitra? Or from the streets of Bamako and Niamey? Will sovereignty remain a word on banners, or will it become the beating heart of a new era? The answer is not written yet. It is being written now. In the choices of governments, in the chants of protesters, in the silent resistance of communities who refuse to be silenced. This is not just America's story. It is Africa's turning point. The struggle for Africa's future is not fought only in parliaments or on dusty battlefields. It is fought in the choices of who builds, who arms, and who listens. And the contrast is too sharp to ignore. While Washington insists that its bases bring stability, Beijing points to highways stretching across Kenya, ports rising in Djibouti, and telecom networks linking villages once cut off from the world. For China, the Belt and Road Initiative is not a sermon, it is asphalt and steel. Hospitals, stadiums, schools, tangible bricks that communities can touch. Yes, Beijing secures resources in return. But Africans see the difference between a road that stays and a base that watches. Russia too plays a different card. In Mali, in the Central African Republic, in Burkina Faso. Moscow offers security deals without lectures. No conditions about elections, no endless speeches about democracy. Weapons, training, and protection in exchange for partnership. For governments under siege, the appeal is obvious. It is not loyalty to Russia, but fatigue with Western hypocrisy. When enemies are at the gates, people prefer a partner who fights beside them rather than a patron who dictates from afar. America calls this dangerous. It calls Chinese projects debt traps and Russian partnerships mercenary influence. But Africans measure reality not in speeches but in consequences. When a dam provides water, when a rail line cuts travel time from days to hours, when markets open because of new roads, these are not abstract gains. They are life. And when drone strikes leave families broken. When bases become targets of anger, those too are measured as life, lost, stolen, or dismissed as collateral. This is the ground truth. Africans are not passive observers in a global chess game. They are players, and the youngest continent on Earth is awakening to that power. Africa's median age is under 20. These millions of young men and women are connected through smartphones. Organized in movements, restless with energy, and unwilling to accept the excuses of old regimes. They march not under foreign flags but under the banner of Pan-Africanism reborn. Bold, raw, unpolished, but undeniable. They chant that sovereignty is not negotiable. They demand that Africa's future not be written in Washington, Beijing, or Moscow, but in Lagos, Dakar, Nairobi, and Bamako. It is a form of Pan-Africanism that feels less like speeches in grand halls and more like rhythms on crowded streets. It is WhatsApp groups sharing protest strategies, TikTok videos exposing corruption, hashtags calling out foreign influence. The same way the American civil rights movement once transformed lunch counters and buses into battlefields for dignity. African youth today turn smartphones into weapons of narrative, insisting the world see them not as victims but as architects of their own destiny. This is not the Pan-Africanism of textbooks. It is raw and immediate, a demand, not a plea. And here lies the danger for foreign powers. Every drone strike, every base built without consent, every deal signed in foreign capitals without African input fuels this fire. America may believe it is tightening its grip, but the truth is the grip is slipping. The more Washington tries to contain Africa, the more Africa slips through its fingers, reaching instead for roads. For weapons on its own terms, for unity that refuses to kneel. Morocco may believe it has staged its triumph, but in the eyes of African youth, it looks like a mask torn from the face of sovereignty. Think of American history. The revolution that birthed the United States was not polite diplomacy. It was the refusal to pay taxes without representation, the anger at foreign troops stationed on local soil. The cry that freedom is worth more than the comfort of subservience. That spirit lives in Africa today. When youth in Niamey or Ouagadougou chant against foreign soldiers, they echo Boston Harbor and Philadelphia taverns. The stage is different, but the defiance is the same. And yet, Washington behaves as if it does not recognize its own reflection. It preaches democracy while practicing secrecy. It condemns empire while behaving like one. It accuses rivals of manipulation while manipulating itself. Africans are watching. And they are choosing. Many do not choose Beijing or Moscow out of blind faith. They choose because roads, security, and partnership without humiliation feel closer to respect than bases and lectures. The West calls it propaganda. Africans call it reality. The real wild card in this story is not America, not China, not Russia. It is Africa's people, especially its youth. Their energy cannot be suppressed forever. Already, movements from Senegal to Sudan, from Nigeria to Mali, show the power of mass mobilization. They topple leaders. They reject deals. They chant slogans that resonate far beyond their borders. And unlike foreign powers, they fight not for extraction but for dignity. This is the rising tide that no command center in Morocco can contain. And here comes the tension that no one in Washington dares admit. By moving AFRICOM to Morocco, America may believe it has found stability, but it may in fact have planted the seeds of its own rejection. Because every base is a reminder of foreign control. Every drone is a shadow on sovereignty. And every time a young African logs into social media, the contrast between speeches and reality becomes sharper, angrier, louder. The board is shifting. China builds. Russia arms. America commands. But Africa remembers. It remembers colonizers who promised protection. It remembers flags that claimed friendship but brought chains. And it remembers that liberation always begins with the refusal to be fooled again. The question is no longer whether Africa can resist. The question is how soon and how fiercely it will. Here is the twist. What Washington celebrates as strategy may in fact be the trigger of a fracture. By planting AFRICOM in Morocco, the United States is not bringing stability. It is setting the stage for Africa to be carved into rival blocks, each one backed by a different empire. Morocco may think it has secured prestige, but prestige can quickly become a curse when neighbors see betrayal, not strength. Algeria already feels the provocation. Its answer will not be silence. It will tilt deeper into Moscow's orbit, not because of loyalty, but because of principle. And with every shift, Africa edges closer to becoming a chessboard where the players do not bleed, but Africans do. Imagine that chessboard. In Morocco, the Knight of America stands tall, draped in stars and stripes. Across the line, Russia moves its rook through Algiers, solid and unyielding. China spreads pawns across ports and railways, slow but steady. The pieces advance. Not in secret but in full view. And yet the board itself is Africa, the soil, the people, the sovereignty. When the knight and rook clash, it is not the players in Washington or Moscow who fall. It is farmers in Mali, traders in Niger, children in Burkina Faso. The moves are global, but the casualties are local. This is the danger no headline in Rabat will admit. Hosting AFRICOM is not a guarantee of security. It is a guarantee of being targeted. A fortress that houses America's command becomes a fortress that attracts its enemies. The same drones that launch from Moroccan soil will make Morocco a battlefield in the eyes of those who resist. And so what Rabat sells as protection may be the very invitation of peril. A jewel that becomes a burden. A crown that becomes a chain. The United States frames this as a way to counter China's roads and Russia's weapons. But in truth, it exposes Africa to a contest not of its choosing. Every foreign base, every foreign fleet, every foreign bargain pushes the continent further into division. History shows what happens when Africa is split by outside powers. It happened with the Berlin Conference of 1884, when Europe carved borders with rulers and pens, not with consent. It happened with the Cold War, when Angola and Congo became proxy battlegrounds for East and West. And it threatens to happen again, now in Morocco, with drones and satellites instead of tanks and bayonets. The technology changes. The arrogance remains. This is why the backlash is inevitable. Morocco may feel secure for now. Washington may feel triumphant. But across the continent, whispers grow into chants, and chants into marches. Sovereignty is not a slogan. It is a demand. And when people believe their future is being auctioned to the highest bidder, they do not stay silent. They rise. The twist in this story is that by tightening its grip, America may have loosened Africa's chains. The very act meant to secure control may ignite a wave of resistance that no drone can bomb, no base can contain, and no general can command. In the end, the decision will not be made in Pentagon boardrooms or Moroccan palaces. It will be made in the streets of Bamako, in the chants of Niamey, in the quiet determination of Africa's youth. Because sovereignty cannot be gifted. It must be claimed. And no foreign base, no drone, no general can rewrite the truth that Africa belongs to Africans. Morocco may carry the banner of AFRICOM, but the question is larger than Rabat. It is the question of whether Africa will again be carved into zones of control. Or whether it will finally rise as one. History does not repeat, it rhymes. And the rhyme today is unmistakable: empires impose, peoples resist, freedom prevails. If you believe Africa's destiny cannot be dictated by outsiders, stand with this story. Like this video, leave your voice in the comments, and subscribe to keep this fire alive. Because this is not just about Morocco. It is about sovereignty. It is about unity. It is about refusing to be conquered again. The torch is in our hands now. The choice is ours. And together, we can make sure that when history is written, it will tell of a continent that refused chains and chose freedom.